Hello everyone and welcome to this VOD review of SKT versus KT. So I saw this game today on the front page of League of Legends Reddit, and I was wondering where it all went wrong for SK Telecom. So we'll be speed reviewing this game here for SK Telecom versus KT, and we'll start out with the pick and ban phase. So speed reviewing, by the way, is when I have the VOD going on 1.5 so that it'll go a little bit faster. We don't need to watch everything in a VOD, but we'll still try, of course, to go into depths about what goes wrong. So SK Telecom, sign is respect ban coming out right here. I don't think you need to ban away from Smeb, obviously, but he is an extremely strong pick because of him being able to sustain lanes so easily, but also poke very efficiently with the arcane comments. So if you don't want to first pick it, then you should just ban it away, and then obviously Saya and Fresh, a combo that Amata and Deft they really do like. So I like this idea of taking that away from those two guys, and then obviously with the Rise pick up here on 8.4, you have to remember that's when Tear of the Goddess was buffed. Same goes with Word of Ages. So obviously a Rise is incredibly strong, and therefore you do want to pick him up, especially in someone like Faker, who is very efficient on playing a Rise. It is one of his core champions, and it has been for a very long time. But Olaf and Varus, good choice from KT. I think that the Olaf and the Varus is very smart because you get engaged then. But Olaf is also a jungler that has risen in popularity because of him being able to just dive into the backline. He's very hard to stop as well. And Sejuani is an interesting pick. I think I would perhaps have preferred a Zac just for more engaged potential and also ganking power. Because the Glacial Prison isn't going to be stopping the Olaf, and you're not going to have that much to go against the Olaf to try and fight against him. But, well, you can make it work, obviously. But SK Telecom already here are very late game scaling, and I think that KT, they have gotten a really good pick rotation off already, having both the mobility of the Talia and the engage of Varus and unstoppability, unstoppableness of Olaf because of him. So in all this can work together in creating a lot of momentum around level 6 if they play correctly. But that's really what you have to look for at this moment for KT to get around level 6. So I think having a strong top laner for KT would be very beneficial too, because you already are looking very much towards being able to get this early game rolling. So if you can have a strong top laner, let's say a Fiora or even a Gangplank, maybe even a Jace. Camille could also work. She's banned obviously, so you can't pick that up. But stuff like that, stuff that will be able to carry the top lane, would be very good for KT, I think, because of SK Telecom banking so much on getting to that late mid game to late game, where they can then start to really dominate the scene. But for SK Telecom, they should be worried about KT picking something like that. Gnar is a good choice from Smeb. It's something that he has played quite a lot. And obviously is a very strong laner in itself. So I do think that KT, they got a very good pick right here, and I think that they were able to get the best draft right here. I like SK Telecom's idea. I love the Rise. I think he's one of my favorite champions in the current meta. I don't like having so much late game in your team. I think that you need to build some early game somewhere from. And while Rise will want to scale up with the Tier and the Rod of Ages, I don't think that he's a bad pick at all, because obviously you can then use his Realm Warp to go out to the side lanes, but because of you then pairing up an Estrel and Tag down the bottom side, you are kind of giving up that bottom side. You even have a Cho'Gath up in the top side too, and Sejuani really isn't the strongest laner the strongest jungler in the early games. So I think that SK Telecom, they really did dig themselves a hole right here. Whereas KT, they saw that SK Telecom, they were going for a lot of that game, and they said, okay, we'll counter this by picking up an Olaf, who is very strong in this early game at level 6, a Varus that with a chain of corruption can force fights, and it's a Leo that can use her reuse wall to also force fights in the early game. So I think they got very far ahead. They got very far ahead of this draft because of them getting all the champions that they needed to really dictate the pace of the game in the early game, while SK Telecom also gave them the edge to do so. So I can understand why already here from the draft, why SK Telecom probably ran into problems during this game, just because of them giving the early game over to KT roster. So KT roster, blah. But let me swap my webcam quick. There we go. That's a double Jasper. There we go. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so what we're expecting from this game is that KT, as I've said, will look towards the early game. SK Telecom, if they really want to do something, they have to look more towards the top side. While they want to try and defend their own, they have to try and deny as many towers away. But if they really do want to go for ganks, top side is the priority because of Cho'Gath being able to proc the permafrost coming in from Sejuani. But the biggest thing that SK Telecom they really can look for is to try and just secure their own territory, make the jungle lit in their own half, and it's going to be hard because of the Tracker's Knife not being active anymore. And they also have to make sure that KT, they don't get any towers. If they get towers, if they start to open up the map, then it will be so much easier for KT to really get control of this game. And obviously with the goal lead that you get from towers, then they will just become stronger. For KT, obviously, they want to look towards level 6. Olaf, a good ganker prior to level 6 too. And now he does have that flash, so he's not going to be as fast as one could have wanted if he went for the usual ghost. But obviously, going up towards the top side would also be very favorable for KT because of them having the Gnoi up there that can set up stuns for the Olaf coming in from score, which you can see why he is hanging towards the top side as of now. But still, KT, they can really pull the trigger at level 6 once you get the Weaver's Wall and you have the Ragnarok coming in from score. Getting on to someone, just find someone, pick someone out of position from SK Telecom is going to be easy peasy lemon squeezy. And that's why you can see, I was talking about this early game prowess from score. That's why it's in the top side now. You also know that Cho'Gath obviously isn't a very mobile laner, so trying to punish him is going to be the way forward. What they now get off that gang in the top side, however, is that score he got the flash away from Yuntara, and because of him getting the flash away from Yuntara, obviously a lot of kill pressure is on Yuntara because he can get very easily killed if he's caught out again. As I said, Cho'Gath has no mobility, and obviously with him having no mobility and Olaf and Gunnar just wanting to run into you, it's going to be so easy for them to get onto him and kill him without any trouble. As of now, however, KT, they have a lot of vision invested into this game. They just had the Skullcraft, they lost some vision down in the bottom side to protect the bottom lane that is pushing up all the time. But KT, they are just focusing a lot on vision as of yet. While they aren't pushing that far ahead yet, they are slowly trying to at least deny some the monsters away from Blank, as you can just see there when he went onto the Raptors, which makes it so much harder for Blank. If Blank doesn't have any monsters to work with, if he loses out in terms of farm and in terms of levels, then it's just going to be starting the downwards spiral for SK Telecom, because if they don't have a jungler that can secure their territory, then you don't really have any way of getting it back, because your jungler will be low. Nice play from KT right now, playing the map, making it so that UCal goes up, uses his Weaver's Wall, and this forces out the double teleport from SK Telecom. And now, because there not being a double teleport from SK Telecom, running them around the map is going to be so much easier once again because of SK Telecom. Again, losing out on vision as of yet. Try and look towards the top side. KT, they have so much vision already, and SK Telecom, they can't play around the bottom side. Ezreal and Tarek aren't really strong, and KT, they know this, so they can continuously push up while not getting punished because of Smeb also being so aggressive up in the top side. And Smeb is a bigger problem than the bottom side of KT. While KT obviously are slowly grinding down the tower up in the bottom side, while they're also doing it in the top side, and therefore Smeb is the one that you really have to deal with, but it is hard to do so, and that is why KT they invest so much vision up towards the top side, because of Smeb just pushing in all the time. Okay, so that's interesting. Obviously, Score didn't go for a Ghost because he went for, I think it's called Predator. The rune that gives him extra mobility on his boots. So that means that when he pops those, he will have extra mobility to work with, and therefore should also be able to get onto the targets without losing out on that movement speed coming in from the Ghost. For now, there's not a lot that has happened. You can see how KT they are pulling themselves ahead in terms of CS, which has granted them this 1,000 gold lead. Not a lot, but it's definitely something that they can write home about. For now, however, we are still waiting for KT to really pick up the pace of the game. They don't have to do so yet, but you can see how they are grinding down this upside. Bottom side is also getting very low, and as long as this continues to go the way that KT they want to, as long as they don't get any pressure onto Smeb and he can't take down that tower, then it's no problem at all. But SKT, they must be feeling the pressure right here. You have a Cho'Gath up in top side who is getting bullied very hard. Is actually behind over a 30 CS, so he has a over 30 CS deficit. Down in the bottom side, you're not losing that much out, and in the mid lane you're also behind. So they must be feeling some pressure right here to try and do something very fast, because once, as I said, they start to lose towers, it will all crumble for SK Telecom, because of towers being a way to really grant yourself a nice goal lead, but also to get control over a map. One thing that SK Telecom, they also have to look out for is the Rift Herald. You don't want to give KT the opportunity to get that Rift Herald, because Rift Herald is also an easy way of getting towers, and therefore I like this ward that SK Telecom they just placed in around the Rift Herald pit, or the Baron pit I guess it's called, because it allows them to spot someone if they spot someone from KT if KT they desire to go for the Rift Herald, because it's not that far in that a pink ward would probably notice it, but it will notice anyone going in there unless they use a blast code, of course. KT they do take the Cloud Drake, so with that Cloud Drake now being taken for KT, they do get a little bit more mobility. Maybe they can utilize that. It's not as important as a Mountain Drake. It hasn't been changed on patch 8.4 yet. The Cloud Drake obviously being buffed, I would say, in patch 8.5. But looking at the state of the game, the first 3 items coming in from KT, now with that Ginsu's Rage Blade from Deft and a Archangel Staff from UCal, they can now start to really look towards more fights. And obviously Smeb with the Black Cleaver is also a huge problem for SK Telecom, and that's the first tower of the game. Smeb without too much trouble getting that first tower, SK Telecom simply not finding a way to get onto Smeb. I think that Black, his biggest problem was that KT, they invested so much vision up towards the top side, so he was never able to really get onto Smeb and punish him from continuously pushing that far up. But that now also means that SK Telecom, they have lost the first tower. They are behind 3,000 gold off of simply towers and CS, and that's a huge problem at this point. Smeb is halfway to Flame Horizoning, I guess, Yuntara. We haven't even played 15 minutes yet. This is incredible from KT, the way that they were able to cover Smeb, making it so that Smeb could never be in a bad position because of him having all of this vision to work with, because of them playing so aggressively towards the bottom side too. And then obviously, I mean, Blank, if he really wanted to, obviously, I think he could have fought back. I think there were some clear times where he could have gone for perhaps the bottom side and tried to draw some attention away from the top side and force out a flash, or just for just to go down to the bottom. Go to the bottom side and draw the attention away from Smeb, making him flash down there, or you could go up to the top side to just actually try to fight against Smeb. I don't think Blank did a very good job in this early game at all. I really do think that he gave up all that pressure, just gave it straight over to KT, and the only good thing that I remember from Blank in this game this far was really to place that ward at the Rift Held. I don't even think that he managed to secure his own territory that well, but that's just because of KT. The reasons why KT, they weren't able to push this further was just because they didn't try to. Like, Blank didn't place a lot of wards. He didn't place something that could make it so that SK Telecom, they would be safe in case KT, they would dive. So I just think it's a very sloppy early game from Blank, and now at least he does something. He denies the Rift Held away from KT, but at this point it's just too late for them. Like, they should have made a play like this 7-10 minutes ago. They should have tried to fight against Smeb, who now has a Black Cleaver, has a Spectre's Cowl as well. You don't even have your first item on Yuntara, and Smeb is running Rampage. Down on the bottom side, they're also starting to acquire a big lead. Yukel in the mid lane, also scaling up, not as far ahead of Faker as the opposite numbers are, but KT, they just played this aggression so beautifully, not overstepping their boundaries at all, but looking towards the towers, grinding those slowly down, and you didn't even have to force any fights. This is a good example of you not having to force fights to get a lead in a game. Oh no, score, doesn't get it. But KT, sorry again, I'm a little bit tired. KT again, now on that Drake, they play this map really well. Like, right here, you got the tower down bottom side. You invested so much time towards getting that tower down there because you've been constantly grinding it down throughout the entirety of the game. But then you're all going down there. You use both UCal, you use Score, and obviously the bottom side. So you get that tower. But off of that, you have so many people down there already, so you can get the Drake. And because of you now having a Mountain Drake, having a Cloud Drake too, SK Telecom, they aren't even in a position to really use the Rift Held. Right here, SK Telecom, they finally do something, but just because of Faker roaming up towards map, doesn't mean that they can really kill him or anything. Yes, you force away the flash, but he has a helmet at this point, and that means that Faker, he can't even deal with Smab, and Faker really is the shining hope of SK Telecom right here. Rift Held will be deployed for SK Telecom, and now they do get a tower of their own. Nothing really to write home about. Yes, you fight back a little bit, but KT, they are still in control of this game, and they will get their own tower in the mid lane because SK Telecom, they spend the time of 4 people up towards the top side, and that means that you don't have the mid lane priority. You lost the ability to push in that lane as well. And now that also means that KT having this 2-tower lead, it means that they are in a good position. So let's see a fight here. That fight could have been so much worse for SKT. Okay, look here. This fight could have been 10 times worse for SK Telecom had Smep, sorry not Smep, had Yukal been there to begin with. So Bang has no mana. Bang literally has no mana at all in that fight. He had just used his ult to clear the waves as well. And Yuntara didn't eat anybody. He didn't feast on anybody. Like SK Telecom, that fight was very sloppy. They tried to go for something that really wasn't a position for them to go for. So let's go back right here. So let's see here. So see right here. Bang obviously here uses his ult. Now, okay, I take my words back about Bang not having a lot of mana. Sorry, not having any mana. He does have enough mana for a few Qs and his W and E in, of course, but it's not a lot, especially considering that you do have a mirror mana build where you need mana to proc your auto attacks. So they go in, right? SK Telecom, they go in. Smeb isn't there. Yukal isn't there. Neither is Yuntara. So it's basically a 4-man unit from SK Telecom going up against a 3-man unit from KT. And all the disengage right here is in the hands of KT. So SK Telecom, they go in. They use the Glacial Prison on... Yeah, so they used the Glacial Prison on Deft. The biggest problem for that fight was that they weren't able to get onto score. Because if they had used the Glacial Prison on score, well then he would have just Ragnaroked away, and then it would have been no problem from SK Telecom at all to, from KT to then just re-engage perhaps, or even turn it around, re-engage or just get out of there without too much trouble. Wolf, I didn't see even how did he go so low? So I think they probably, okay, so he went under the tower, he was caught by the chain of corruption, so he could have died. But Yuntara wasn't there. Again, if they had the feast, then I think it would have been a kill onto score if they had feasted on him. So it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. But again, it felt very forced from SK Telecom. It felt like a very desperate measure. Desperate call, because of SK Telecom knowing that they are falling so slowly behind against KT. And now this is what happens this is what I was talking about to begin with in this VOD review, where KT, once they do get that control over the towers, once they are able to just get these few outer turrets, they will then be able to get the vision control over the jungle of SK Telecom. You can see how they are slowly pushing in and then getting that control. And SK Telecom, they can't really fight back. Okay, so they do get a nice pick onto depth. That's good. That was really nice. So that was a Glacial Prison onto depth. So a big mistake from depth in terms of position. I wonder what they get off of this. So, an uncharacteristic mistake from KT. I don't think that SK Telecom, they can get a Baron off of this. It would be very risky to go for the Baron. Especially with Yuntara being caught out of position. What they possibly could have done if Yuntara hadn't been caught out of position would have been to just go in around the Baron, place down vision, because that would ultimately have given them more information that could then make it so that KT wouldn't be able to get a Baron in the next few minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. But still a nice pick onto to Dev that obviously buys SK Telecom a little bit of time in this game to scale up. Remember, that's what they are all about, scaling up with the Rise and the Ezreal. And if they can do so by finding these time to do so, then they will slowly outscale KT. But it's a long road from here. Once the items goes up, I want to show you guys something. Okay, so take a look here. Take a look here at a Faker and a Bang. Bang currently not very strong. We are 25 minutes into the game. Has been forced to go for QSS. So you delayed a huge power spike from Bang right there for not being able to go for the Blade Through King. Faker, on the other hand, he's strong. He is strong, has both the Abyssal Mask, the Archangel Staff, and the Sarah's Embrace, and is getting closer to getting his next item as well, which will, I would imagine, perhaps be a VODS stuff, just to get something that can actually fight back against KT. But nonetheless, SK Telecom, they do need 10 more minutes at least just to get that Blade Through King onto Bang. Yuntara is also in a terrible spot. Is about to gain Flame Horizon by Snap. The only item that Yuntara has at this point is a Righteous Glory, and that's not really tanky stats. That's not anything to really back home about. It's only really only health, and it's not like health is going to keep you alive during these fights. Oh Jesus, no. Oh, Bang. Oh, so no, wait. Okay, so that fight, everybody just grouped up. So let's look here. So what happens is, you see how Blank is pushed back. He's pushed back into the back line. Yukal is not there either. But because of Blank being pushed back into the back line, suddenly you have this pressure coming from two different angles. And then ultimately you also have Unterra being pushed forward. So you have this free thread perspective coming in from KT. This means that SK Telecom, in this fight, all they really have to do is have this front line consistently push forward, because that will just protect the backline of SK Telecom. With Deft being so close to the front line, it's not really being at the longest auto attack range that you would want as an AD carry. He is in a position to get dove by Yuntara and Blank, and I'm pretty sure that's what ultimately happens here. That Blank, Blank gets onto Deft, and because of the feast from Yuntara, they are able to burst him down. KT, they also invest a lot onto Faker, who ultimately dies. But because of them having invested so much on Faker, there's really nothing left in this basket for them to use. And then this fight just ends up being a little bit of a clown fiesta. Smep so close to going down, but Bang jumps over and gets caught by both Smep and Yukal. So again, a good fight by SK Telecom. I would say right here that if I didn't know that SK Telecom were about to lose this game, I would say that they are getting a better chance at winning, because of KT overstepping the boundaries so many times, giving them all of these kills, which ultimately means that SK Telecom, they are able to buy items for themselves, and that means that SK Telecom, they actually are scaling up, and that's what KT they have to worry about. If SK Telecom are able to scale up, then they will be better than them towards the late game. At this point in the game, KT, they do still have better items than SK Telecom. They also do have more items to work with. You do have 3 items in in the top side, whereas Yuntara only has 2 at this point. In the bottom side, you also do have an AD carry that are stronger currently, but SK Telecom, they need to start pushing forward to get that vision that they need, because they can't keep playing without no vision. This is very risky. So SK Telecom, they literally have no vision in the jungle. Oh, sorry, not literally, but they have 2 wards. 3 if you count the tri-bush, but I don't really do that because score can't come from that way anyways. So you don't have any vision of the enemy jungle. You haven't denied away their vision, and this means that it's going to be so easy for them to know that you're going to be there. So very interesting decision from SK Telecom to start it out of the blue, not in a position to do so, very forced, and they should have waited up, tried to deny the vision away from KT. Now KT, it seems like they're just able to all pile onto SK Telecom, and now the KT were able to kill Blank, which, okay, scores very low, never mind. I thought score had more health. Alright, so Blank dies, doesn't end up punishing SK Telecom too much, obviously because of score being that low, but does mean that SK Telecom, they do lose that momentum that they had over that Baron pit. They had all that they really needed to try and put down that vision. They had just won a few fights. They had put some fear in the hearts of KT, and also KT was starting to respect them. Now obviously KT now knows, okay, we're stronger than these guys, we still are, so we can go in, we can deny the vision, and then we can take a safe Baron. That's exactly what SK Telecom should have done. Go in and place down the vision. And now SK Telecom, because of them not having any vision anymore, they just had to use the Veil Warp to get onto that Baron. Now they have no way of engaging if KT, they start off this Baron, which they are doing right now. Look at the Weaver's Wall. That is fucking, sorry, I shouldn't be swearing. The Weaver's Wall, incredibly beautiful, cuts away everyone from SK Telecom except Blank, but Blank is forced to use his dash over it, so he can't get into the Baron pit. That was so well played by KT. They did exactly what you should do every time that you want to take a Baron. Deny vision away from the enemy and then start the Baron. Right here, SK Telecom, they had no way of knowing that this was actually going on. The Realm Warp wasn't cooldown. They had no Scryer's Orb. And this means that KC, they got a 5-man Baron. This is exactly what they needed. They haven't been able to push forward because of them not building it up correctly, not getting the vision, and not letting Smap do his thing out on the side lane. But because of them now having that Baron, it's going to be so much easier for them to do so, and will ultimately also lead them to a 3rd Mountain Drake. So KT, this is going to be no problem at all ending out this game, as long as they can open up the base at this push or the next one. They do need an inhibitor. They still have 2 minutes and 15 seconds left to go, so they have plenty of time to try and tear down one of these towers. And there's no wave clear on the start of SK Telecom that can deal with these Baron up minions. KT, they just got the last nail in the coffin, and oh my god, SK Telecom losing the Glacial Prison as well. That means they're giving up an inhibitor. They have to give up an inhibitor. There's no way that they can stop this push from KT. 1 minute 30 seconds still left on the Baron. So KT, if they had prepped the waves in the mid lane, then they could have been able to go onto it, the mid lane turret that is, but they hadn't done so. So now they just have to go for a Mountain Drake instead to get that last 10% true damage onto Mountain Drakes and towers. KT, again, just group up. Incredibly big gold lead is in their hands right now. Nothing SK Telecom they can do about this. And, well, KT, as long as they have the Baron minions, as long as bottom lane is pushing and Yuntara is forced away from the top side where KT is pushing, there's going to be nothing that KT can do to stop these pushes. Now we also have a ban of command. Obviously, if you haven't seen that, ban of command is incredibly strong on patch 8.4. Last stand coming in from SK Telecom. Yuntera had to go back, but look at the bottom side. It's pushing. It's a very big wave that you have down there. So I think that at this point, KT, they should just be playing around that bottom side. They could have stayed up in the top side. I would have said. So I would say, because there's a big there's a big wave down the bottom side. A lot of pressure being built up. And if they had wanted to, they probably could have opened up the base by taking that inhibitor turret. Decide not to go all the way, and actually just go back, play it safe. They even give up a Mountain Drake, so they clearly are respecting SK Telecom right here. But KT could have been more cheeky if they wanted to, I would say. However, KT now again opening up the base, still know that there are minions down on the bottom side. So they give respect over to SK Telecom. I think that the next thing that KT will do is probably just go back, spend up the gold that you had just earned by picking up that tower in the top side, and then you will go into the Baron, place Vision in SK Telecom's jungle to make sure that you can get it without too much trouble. Already here you have placed a lot of pink wards, so SK Telecom, they don't really know what's happening around the river area, and that means that SK Telecom, they will again be forced to use the Scry's Orb and the Realm Warp to know and check if if anything is happening in the Baron pit. Because if they lose another Baron, then that is going to be the game. They already have a Baron inhibitor, so they already have two Baron inhibitors basically. One that's down, one that isn't down. And if KT, they are just able to get those two inhibitors, then so much pressure will build up on the side lanes. SK Telecom, they will not be allowed to scale up, and ultimately SK Telecom will then lose out, because if they can't get the resources, the gold that they need, then there's no way that they can fight against KT. Let's see this fight. What is Faker doing? I don't understand what Faker was doing in the fight. Do we get a replay? I don't think we do. Okay, so look here. Alright, Faker, he's out. Let me, maybe I can show you my, I can show you my cursor. So this is okay. He's all the way out there. What is he doing here? The fight is over here. You want to kill Deft. Right? You have, Blank right here, who's going to be able to land a good Glacial Prison onto Deft if he wants to. You have Yuntera, who have just flashed, but if you land a Glacial Prison, then you will be able to feast onto Deft. You have Bang, who is shooting his Mystic shots all the time, and you're out there fucking zoning the top laner. Like, what are you doing, Faker? You need to be with your team. Obviously there's no Cosmic Radiance right now, but you should be with your team. Look, because Blank gets engaged on, and because of Blank getting engaged on, you lose your front line. Faker slowly turning around, but just isn't there in time to actually do anything, and that's going to be the winning push from KT. Just right there, because of Faker. Obviously not always, so not entirely because of Faker, but because of KT just being in a better position than SK Telecom what I was saying. So Faker, bad positioning in that fight, but ultimately this game was won by KT having such a good early game. And then obviously that Baron, but the early game made it so that they have control over the main parts of the game. And because of them having control over so many parts of the game, it meant that SK Telecom, they weren't able to get that many towers. I think SK Telecom, they only have one tower if I remember correctly. And if SK Telecom had more towers, then they would have had more gold to work with, which would ultimately mean that KT, they would have to fight stronger opponents, which they just couldn't. but nonetheless a good game being played by a KT. And that ends it here from my VOD review of SK Telecom versus KT Game 1. So I hope you all enjoyed this. I will be looking to do more VOD reviewing and just basically content once school allows me to do so. It has been a little bit hectic as of recently. I have been focusing more on casting than trying to grow my YouTube channel as of lately. Just because of casting being obviously my primary motivation to do this, but also because of me having to pick between the two. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. Always look me up on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram as well. So catch you later, guys. Have a nice one.